Hello there, and welcome to the Insights Podcast. I'm your host, Anand Daniel. We are on a new season on the third episode of our mini series called Grit Stories. In Grit Stories, we speak to startup founders who have put India on the global tech map. But along with the shining numbers and the feel good quotes, we're going to get real for a moment and talk about the difficult moments that punctuate every success story so we can see what resilience and determination actually look like. Today's guest, who I'm super excited to host, is the wonderful Aprameya Krishna, co-founder and CEO of Koo. Aprameya went to NIT Mangalore for his engineering degree and then on to IMA. A couple of jobs later, he founded a ride-sharing startup that many of us in India have used called TaxiForSure. Long story short, after years of innovation and competition, TaxiForSure was acquired by Ola. This was a great exit for the company, for the founders, and for its employees. And he's back now as the co-founder and CEO of Koo, India's homegrown microblogging platform, and at a very interesting time for this sector as well. Aprameya's journey has not been simple, not without struggle. He has come through a lot to get here. In this episode, we will try to understand the founder's journey from someone who is a perfect example of a tenacious, gritty founder. Okay, I think he should tell you more about it. Let's dive right in. Hey, Aprameya, welcome to the podcast. It's a real pleasure to have you on board.
Thanks, Anand. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So, for the few who don't know about Koo, maybe let's start with that. What is Koo and what's the current scale of Koo? What do you want to talk about there?
Sure, thanks, Anand. So, Koo is a microblogging platform. So, while building Vokal, we came across an insight where a lot of language speakers who are answering on Vokal asked us for a feature where they could just express themselves and not just answer questions. And that came as a surprise to us because, living in the English world for so long on the internet, we thought, all use cases have been solved for. And, when we dug a little deeper, it came across to us that, a lot of non-English folks actually don't have a voice on the internet yet, on a daily basis of what they think about what's happening around them, what's happening in their lives. And their personalities, which are very unique, haven't come onto the internet yet. Right. So that's when we thought we should experiment a feature inside Vokal. And we gave an express button that never worked out. So we said, okay, Vokal is too heavy a question answer use case. Let's build another app. And that's how Koo was formed. We built the first version of the app in 2-3 months and put it out in Kannada and started building features for local languages. And that's how Koo came about. Koo is basically designed to bring out the voices of non-English population onto the internet.
Got it. Awesome. Thanks for that intro to Koo. We'll come back to that. Hopefully you're all doing well. It's been a tough time. So maybe talk to us a little about how you're doing, how the team is going, and maybe anything you're doing through the platform, whatever you want to share.
So it's been a tough time, of course, building a whole new product, which is, much faster paced product than Vokal, has been challenging to get everybody together because they're used to a certain rhythm of working, and now to up the rhythm in the last 1 year, being remote most of the time has been quite a challenge. Building most of our team for Koo during the pandemic has also been a challenge because you can't meet anybody face to face. They're all scattered. You're not seeing each other. So just getting in sync with people with a few video calls now and then is challenging, like for everybody else. So I think despite all of that, we've been able to come through. Most of our guys, few of them did get COVID. We were able to kind of support them in whatever way we could. We also were the first office to actually start working from home last year. We got an additional COVID insurance for them, for everybody in the company. Our second round of vaccination is happening on July 2nd. So I think, as a team, we've been able to stick together and come through very positively because Koo didn't exist last year and today it is where it is. So can't complain.
Yeah, good, man. Cool. So I want to rewind now and go back and talk a little bit about your background, maybe whatever you want to share, where you grew up, all the way through your childhood studies and ending at TaxiForSure. So, and I'll probably pitch in with a couple of questions, but I'd love to hear your story.
So I'm truly from Bangalore, which means I was born here. Right now, so many of us say that we're from Bangalore, but very few entrepreneurs who are from Bangalore, right, who were actually born here and who are Kannadigas. So I'm one of those few in the ecosystem right now. And studied here, went to a school called Kumarans, then went to NIT Surathkal, went to IIM Ahmedabad. In between, I worked at Infosys for a couple of years, where I kind of realized that maybe I should do more management side stuff than being purely tech side. Right? And post IIM Ahmedabad, worked for a company called Jones Lang LaSalle, where I was one of the first employees recruited from IIM Ahmedabad into the organization. So I think I've always wanted to explore new things, whether it was as a job, whether it's as a role, whatever it is. I get very excited with doing something special, something that has not been done before. I think that's the kick, and that's the theme of my life.
So, from that role to entrepreneurship, what made you make that move? How did that happen into TaxiForSure? And also, maybe any entrepreneurs in the family or any history of entrepreneurship, or yeah.
Not at all. As in, when I had first brought up the topic of entrepreneurship at home, my parents basically said, "Go get married, have a good job. That's enough, right? Stop thinking about all these things. This is not for us." So I actually was able to say, "Okay, give me 2 years. I want to invest 2 years of my life into trying to be something, right? I don't know whether it'll succeed or not, but I just want 2 years, after which I can go back and get a job. That's not a problem." Right? So that is what convinced them. It wasn't that they really believed that I could become an entrepreneur. It's just that, okay, this guy...
Okay, 2 years, let me give. Yeah.
2 years is fine.
Yeah.
So I quantified it to a measurable so that they could say yes, right? That wasn't always my passion, right? Like, I think it grew on me. Like in college, I never took any entrepreneurship course. I never attended any of the placements by startups. It was a world that I wasn't aware of. Like, this was 2008. And there was not too much noise about, startups back then. Right? So I think after joining Jones Lang LaSalle, getting a sense of what running a business is actually about, right? Seeing what the CEO was doing, seeing what the business heads were doing, doing my contribution to the role. So suddenly I thought, oh, okay, this is what business is all about, and maybe I should start something of it, because I felt underutilized. Like I had a lot of energy. I would go with 100 ideas every month to my CEO, but she would always say, okay, let's just, great ideas, but let's just keep doing what we're doing, right? So I didn't want to, mess that up for myself in terms of, my energy that I had to think of new things, to put in 24 hours a day into that effort. So I didn't want to mess that up. So that's when I started thinking about entrepreneurship, and then started reading about Flipkart, Redbus, all these startups that were going on back then. And then, of course, stumbled upon TaxiForSure with Raghu over a drunken session that we had. So yeah, that was fun.
You had to get a taxi home, and you said taxi. How did that happen? Yeah.
No, so me and Raghu, I was talking to 3-4 friends of mine. Raghu was one of them, and each one I was discussing a different idea. One person, I was talking about importing mobile phones and branding it and selling it. With another person, I was talking about grocery delivery. Right. Third person was Raghu. We spoke about actually the Ixigo model, right? This meta search for travel. And then found out that Ixigo existed and a few more existed. And then we got really disappointed that evening and said, okay, let's just go drink. It doesn't matter if we don't get an idea. And during that session is when, we started discussing, okay, what is the most frequent problem that we have every day? Like going from one place to another, trying to get an auto. Cabs that time were just, these radio taxis which would take you to the airport and not take you within the city. So that's how, we kind of thought of the problem and we said, okay, with one button, we should be able to get the nearest cab without calling. And we drew that on a small little tissue paper in that bar. And that idea stuck with us even the next morning after we got sober. And that's how TaxiForSure came.
Luckily, you had the paper, I guess.
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah. So people know the TaxiForSure's journey, and you guys built it, made it a India-wide brand, then exited to Ola, became a successful founder. So did Raghu, and then started doing angel investments. All the successes are known, but this whole series is about all the struggles that happen behind the scenes. So maybe if you look back on the TaxiForSure journey, right? How long was it, and maybe one or two key struggles that you went through would be very helpful for us to talk through. Yeah.
TaxiForSure was, a crash course on life condensed into 3.5 years, right? When we started off, it was challenging because we really didn't know much about entrepreneurship. We knew that, okay, let's just go after this one problem, get people from point A to point B, no matter what happens, right? And we had 8 lakh rupees between me and Raghu. We put that in and ran out of it very, very, very quickly. And then started, talking to various folks and got 15 lakh rupees, I think, from, a few seniors of ours from college before we met you, of course. So I think that whole phase of not knowing, how we'll build the team, where we'll get the money, is just crazy. And back then, angel investors were very few. You don't even know who to approach for your first round of investment. There are misconceptions on, a VC will only fund you after this stage or, whatever it is. So, lack of information, lack of ecosystem, not knowing where to go. So I think that
2011 time frame, right? 11, 12.
Yeah, 2011. So I think we've come a long way in the decade, right? From there to now, people are raising money left, right, and center. Angel investment, good startups get more oversubscribed these days in a week or even less. So that's been great. The one biggest challenge during TaxiForSure, I think, was, actually when we were doing very well. We were unit positive in Bangalore and close to unit positive in Delhi, and we were really upping the pace on that. And then suddenly the market exploded, right? Like, there was 200 million invested in Ola. Uber was getting aggressive, and suddenly we had to change gears. And we weren't in that frame of mind. We had raised money for a different type of journey, and then the market had a different view on it, right? So I think that was an intense period. Like, I think we probably never slept during that time. Like, changing our strategy, upping our burn, not being comfortable about it, but still upping our burn because that's the only way to do it. And then going and trying to raise money, and the Uber Delhi incident happening, and then the promised funds also drying up. I think that was a crazy period. Just that we were doing well enough and we had an option to raise slightly lesser than what we were planning. So hence, there was a demand from both Ola and Uber to buy us out. But I think being at the right place, right time really helped. But that was an intense period, right? Because, we were more internally focused on our strategy than focusing on what the market really wanted. So I think that was one learning, which startups that I invest in, Vokal, Koo, all these journeys are defined around a lot more market-facing realities and combined with good learnings of being internally focused.
And can you elaborate on that internal facing versus market facing in that TaxiForSure? What would you have done probably differently, or some of the key lessons?
Yeah, I think the reading of the size of market and how much intensity you have to put in. Like, let's look at the Uber story, right? They were in the US, and once they got their PMF, they started thinking global. And hence they raised money for conquering the world and, all of that. So it depends on what you think is the possibility from the idea that you have, right? I think as first time entrepreneurs back then, we didn't dream as big. Like, how big can the market be? Can we go outside India? Inside India, how big is the market, right? I think once you find a great product market fit, like in the case of cabs, it's about who dreams bigger, right? And, I think Uber was setting that tone across the world, and Ola picked that up in India faster than what we did. And that's what I mean by, we were saying, okay, we don't know how big the market is, but let's grow organically and, with a unit level profitability to whatever the size is. But on the other side, the competition was thinking, let's just accelerate, capture market, and then think about profitability, right? So I think the two approaches are very different. The aggressive approach attracts more money, right? And that's what exactly happened. And now, taking from those lessons, Koo is already in Nigeria. The first, opportunity we got, we started thinking bigger than what we started off Koo as, right? So, the learning from there, now thinking much bigger, dreaming much bigger, that's something that we're doing.
Awesome. That's helpful. That was an intense phase also, right? And going through and exiting.
Yeah.
Maybe talk us through from there all the way through starting Vokal, your personal journey, and how was that? Yeah.
I think post TaxiForSure, we stayed there for about a month because we sold to competition, of course. We stayed for too long. And started thinking about the next. If you look at it, TaxiForSure happened because we rode a wave of smartphones, we rode a wave of apps. So there has to be something that's already happening in the ecosystem. And on top of that, if you build, then you're riding a wave rather than opposing it over. So the next big wave, when I was thinking about it, was that a lot more users will start getting access to smartphones and internet on the smartphones, right? And existing products are all English first, right? So if you look at the internet, the way we started using the internet was content consumption. Then we went on to more powerful stuff, which is searching for information and getting it in an instant, connecting with other people, communicating with them, and also expressing oneself and showing who we are to the world, right? So I think there are two phases of any internet market being built. One is entertainment consumption phase, and then there is the empowerment phase. So if products weren't built in local language to empower people, there is no use of the internet. So we said, okay, let's start experimenting products which will help people communicate, express, connect, and get information, right? These are what empowers us. And I wouldn't have been where I am without all of this put together, right, on the internet. So, there are so many more folks who need that kind of power in their hands, right? So that's how we started experimenting. And of course, as our first idea was to actually build a voice-first WhatsApp, right?
Which year was this, Apu?
This was 2017,
16 or 17, right?
16, 17 time frame. And we built that out and, saw that, network building with WhatsApp already penetrated into India was getting tough then. Like, you had to think of non-product ways to get acceleration there, which means, give some freebies, give some other reason. So we didn't want to go in that direction. And we said, let's think of a stronger use case. And we said, okay, let's enable expression. So we did a voice, status update app, right? And that's the first version of Vokal. So we said, let's do status updates. And then we saw that most status updates were questions and people responding to those questions. And that's how Vokal went into the direction of question answers, right? So that journey was basically powered by the thought that, you have to empower the non-English speaking population of India And if that product does well in India, you can always go abroad because there are so many non-English speaking people across the world as well. So yeah, so that's how Google started.
Yeah. So this vocal phase where you went through initially the audio app, the audio messaging, and then the question answer and all that. How long was that phase? And maybe talk us through some of the challenges as you were going through. You
Yeah.
had raised a seed round, and then yeah, right, yeah.
I think the first challenge was, as a transaction entrepreneur who ran, okay, I'll give you a product or a service and you pay me at the end of it. So let's bucket all of that into transactions. Getting into a non-transaction business itself required some rewiring of the brain for me, right? Because there was no end to us, to a user's journey on a social network. Like, there's no transaction. So you show any amount of content, they can always read more. You don't know what they see today, will they like tomorrow, right? So we're dealing with a lot more variables when it comes to software products like Vokal and Koo. Whereas with TaxiForSure, it was, actually, if you showed the taxi coming and dropped them from one place to another and took the money seamlessly, you're done. Like the unit experience is sealed, right? And then you keep getting better. So I think rewiring my brain and the team's brain, because social networks and content companies are not too many in India. So that experience just doesn't exist, right? So to fundamentally learn what it's all about, I think that was a big challenge. We've overcome that over years. And I think the vocal question answer PMF was kind of found after 2.5 years, right? So, during those times, not knowing what to chase, because you're coming from a place where you chased number of rides per day every day, right? Customer happiness and driver happiness every day. And to have raised money and then not knowing what to chase and just keep figuring out what's the best product for the new user that we're targeting. It was just like there was no pressure from the outside, but it's just a lot of pressure within you saying, what are we doing wrong every single day, right? Saying, how can we improve? How do we get to a product that people really love? So I think that struggle on a daily basis of finding the product market fit was crazy. So I think it wasn't easy, but it took a lot of iterations. Some days you feel great about something, some days you feel low about something. And you going through it alone is one thing, but if you have a team, like we had a team of 25 people, to motivate them to keep trying is a very, very tough job. So we've gone through our journey of people coming and going through the journey, and for you to be the only constant in that journey is very tough. So
How did you keep yourself motivated and going during these times?
Well, I hate being put in a corner. Like, I hate it. Like, I will find a way out no matter how. I will do something, right? So I think that's just me. Like, I don't want to be in a corner where I feel I'm not doing something that is worthwhile, right? So you keep finding what's better. You keep moving in that direction. And even the vocal PMF, right? It's a very powerful tool. Like for somebody to ask a question in local language, like 40% or more of Google in India gets local language questions. And they all land on content that is in English or text, right? For vocal to come and give those voice answers through a community-based, solution has been very powerful. Vocal is at 15 to 20 million monthly active users now. All search free customers, and we're trying to grow it to 100 million, right? It's a very different product from TaxiForSure. TaxiForSure was a very intense daily, everybody will talk about it. If I go to a party, people will come and say, your taxi, there was this guy who was stinking, various things, all only feedback during social get-togethers.
Yeah.
Right?
I used to get, man, leave alone you. Yeah, cool. Keep going. Yeah.
So going from a product that every single person really had something to say about to having built something very valuable, but nobody's really talking to you about it every day. And it's for a user who you don't interact with on a daily basis, right? So you're not in that community to hear about Vokal every day and get some live feedback on what you're building, right? So that also was a huge transition, saying, okay, how do we feel that we're doing well, right? Number of questions answered, number of answers given. We found our own ways to keep ourselves moving, right? And we always knew. And we also learned that each product has to be built for what it is. So you found a question answer PMF, but don't expect daily usage from it. And don't expect people to download the app and keep it. So these were also learnings through the phase, saying this will be a web first experience. And slowly, as the repository grows, people might just download it. Like it's like
mobile web, not necessarily an app, right? So,
mobile web, right? Because it is, I might ask a question twice a month. For that, I won't keep an app. So it's it's a category that you found PMF in, but it is not going to give you that kind of a daily kick out of running that product. But it has its own place in society and it is required. Right? So the motivation for Vokal is always going to be, can we be the largest repository of Indian answers in local languages than anyone else, right? So if you want to ask in text, go to Google. If you want to ask voice and get voice answers, you come to Vokal. So that's the story there, right? So we're building that. And in the meantime, as I was saying, some of the answerers on Vokal wanted to express themselves, and that's how we got onto the experiment of Koo. And Koo, actually, we've stumbled upon something that is 100x more intense than TaxiForSure, right? So if TaxiForSure, I wasn't sleeping here, I can't even dream of sleeping.
Yeah, got it. I want to get to Koo in a minute, but as you went through the Vokal journey, you also did something that's not common. You brought on board a co-founder, right? Maybe talk through that journey. How did that happen?
Yeah.
What was the thinking?
Yeah. So while running TaxiForSure, we were building our core team, right? We wanted a CMO, we wanted a COO, So during that phase, as part of our core team building, we met Mayank, right? Mayank, at that point, was thinking of either starting up or joining a story. So he's from ex-Redbus and he was one of the core team members there, heading growth and marketing at Redbus. So we met him, very first principle thinking guy and, very enthusiastic, very, very, very passionate. Like he will be by your side no matter what, right? So we wanted to get him on board, but then he decided to go and start up on his own, right? So that never worked, but we became friends because we aligned with our thinking and started thinking about, how the future of internet products should be, and those kind of discussions brought us together. And he was running Goodbox, and when I started Vokal, so never could get him on board right away, but always wanted to work with him. So when he exited Goodbox, asked him whether he'd like to join this journey, and he was very enthusiastic about the overall market opportunity and how large the story can be if we build for the next billion, right? So I think we're both motivated by the number of people we impact through the products that we build, and hence that was a very natural selection for me to go to him. So it's been great. I mean, we've even at Vokal, when we were thinking of how do we build more higher frequency product, all our discussions, all our walks around Jayanagar where we had our office, quite intense, right? So it's been a fun journey.
Awesome. So now let's talk about Koo, right? So you touched upon the inception, but maybe a little bit more, and then how it has evolved, and now it's takeoff path, right? So taking off already. So talk us through that. Yeah.
So Koo is a slightly more than 1 year story, actually, right? So I think again, TaxiForSure was right place, right time. Koo is also right place, right time, right? When we started off,
Early
last year.
2020, right? So you started the company in 16 or 17 early. So for 3 years it was Vokal, and it was a good journey, but it was not taking off, right? So or like
Yeah. It
or,
was an organic, nice
organic
journey
growth.
to
Yeah,
still growing. Yeah.
yeah.
So we were always in the hunt for a higher frequency product, which excites people every day, excites people around us, right? And who happened with a couple of insights that I've already shared, and we remember. So we first went to Mandya, called 30, 40 journalists into a room and said, here's a product. You've never used microblogging before. Take this product, and every day, whatever article you write or print, you take a photo of it and upload it here, and see whether you can get people from Mandya to follow you on this app
In Kannada.
in Kannada.
Hmm.
So we bettered the experience typing in Kannada. Some of them came back and said, I don't want to type, I just want to say whatever. So we included a voice button. For some of the slightly better known guys and journalists from the TV background, they said, I want to put my video. So we used the insights from these guys to actually keep making the product better for Kannada. Right? And as soon as we started doing that, the lockdown happened, and we launched Kannada, and everybody was at home. They found a new place to come and hang out and share thoughts, write poems, all of those things just in Kannada, right? And we used that 3-4 month phase to really go deeper into the local language experience. Making sure that people entered a language which is not experienced on any other platform. Making sure that every button, every instruction is given in Kannada. Making sure that you can find other Kannadigas. So we made sure that we got deep into the experience of local languages. And post that, as a 3-month-old product, after going live, of course, in March 2020, there was this Atmanirbhar app challenge by the government of India, right? And it was the first time they were holding something like that. And we were in two minds. Last moment, we applied and went through a grueling judging session by the government, and finally actually won in the social category, right? As a 3-4 month product. And we were like, okay, we're onto something here, because you can't beat people who have existed for 5-6 years in social just like that. So there is something about this product that is making it special. And then we got a mention by the Prime Minister in August, Man Ki Baat, and then we won Google's Best Daily Essential App for 2020 in December. So everybody was kind of like excited about the product that we were building. And, we were only in local languages till then. So from Kannada, we went to Hindi, then we went to Telugu, all these languages. And in December, we saw what was happening in the US with Donald Trump and US elections and everything. And we said, okay, if this happens in India, we should have English. Whether we wanted to do English in the first place or not, but I think there is a market opportunity to have English in the app. Right? So we launched English overnight, and January we actually saw that helped so much. Right? So there was the government versus Twitter feud, and a lot of the union ministers actually shifted to Koo during that time. And we got a huge spike. Of course, we weren't ready for it. So things crashed, but all good learnings. Now we're much better prepared, have a much bigger team, really working hard to make things happen. So I think there is a uniquely Indian experience that people want, right? Both local languages, ability to express local culture, and for citizens of a country, I think a product that is respecting local laws, or local laws or local constitution, I think that is also adding a lot of flavor to what we're building, right? So even when we go to Nigeria, we're saying the same thing. They have like 5 major languages apart from English.
How did that happen, going to Nigeria?
Yeah, so as in, it happened again overnight, right? So we've been very, very fast in reacting to all these situations. So Nigeria banned or suspended Twitter indefinitely, let's say on today. In 2 days, we actually approached the government of Nigeria and they created an account on Koo, right? Within 5 days of banning, the president of Nigeria had his account on Koo, right? And now it's expanding. Like more and more known faces and folks are coming onto the platform. So I think the whole idea of decentralized social networks is finding a place across the world, right? Like while there will be social networks which will connect the world and English speaking audience, there will be a need for social networks within each country to go deeper and connect and find reasons to connect deeper within a country. Our reasons are local culture, language, and laws. Right? So there'll be other reasons for people to go and build local networks in each country. So yeah, so I think very, very exciting journey. Right now our community on Koo is very, very rich. We've got chief ministers of all important states. We've got union ministers. We've got Bollywood celebrities. We've got sportsmen. We've got writers, journalists, the major media houses. And I think it's because of the intent with which we built the platform that it has attracted so many people to come and use it with so much love.
That's awesome. No, so that I'm sure there are skeptics who are saying this is nothing but Twitter. So can you talk about what's unique about Koo, right?
So our goal. Let me give some statistics, right? So there are more than 650 million internet users in India. When it comes to microblogging or let's say Twitter, for example, they probably have 15 to 17 million monthly active users and daily active users of 4-5 million. Now, compared to the 650 million audience that is waiting to express themselves on the internet, this is a minuscule number, right? So if less than 1% on a daily basis or 0.5% of the population having access to internet is expressing themselves on the internet, that is not a true reflection of the voice of India, right? The voice of India is a lot bigger. And those voices are not comfortable using a product which is only English first, right? Like, if you enter a product, if you feel like, it's like, a person entering a 5-star hotel and not being comfortable staying there, right? Like, because the faces he doesn't relate to, the prices at which things are being sold, he doesn't relate to. So it just feels out of place, right? Everybody needs a place of their own to be comfortable. And that's what we've done. So we've tried to connect the best of India to the rest of India with language, right? So for example, I have never shared, even now I'm talking in English, I have never shared all of this in Kannada. I am sure there are enough Kannadigas who want to learn about this story and see how they can apply it to their own businesses, right? So who is the place to do all of this? We're enabling for India to talk and express to each other, irrespective of language. So the latest feature that we've developed is, it's called multilingual Kooing. You can type in English and then decide which communities you want to post that in, which other language communities you want to post that in, and quickly tap and translate and post. So the English post will go to English, Kannada will go to Kannada, Telugu will go to Telugu, and suddenly your thoughts have now been shared with the entire India of your interest, right? Which never happened. And I start getting Kannada followers or Telugu followers. And that way, information which was never available to them before has now been given. And even if 10 people of those guys get inspired and start and accelerate their own personal journeys, the country grows a lot faster.
Awesome. That's great, man. Maybe last question on Koo is any key challenges that you face? It's a short journey, but what are the top of mind things that you're working on? Yeah.
So I think so any product that has great product market fit, right? It boils down to all internal problems. It is not about the market. Everybody, like right now, if I tweet or do something or post on Facebook, I get a bunch of requests on features. I get a bunch of things on what we should improve on. That is a great place to be. I feel like I'm back at those social parties during TaxiForSure, right? Like when
Fix this.
people,
Yeah. Drivers not doing this types. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's lovely to be, building something that so many people care about. And there are very few products in India where, right from the prime minister of the country to the president of Nigeria to, drivers of taxis, everybody cares about this product, right? So I think the challenge is, of course, to deliver on this promise. And that delivery won't happen because I have a dream and, the thoughts are very clear. And so that is the first part. You should definitely have that. I think, getting people together to come and execute this dream with, the challenges that we have right now in terms of attracting talent and building the teams faster. And, that is the main challenge, nothing else. Right? So I'll use your podcast to basically invite all engineers who want to be part of the Koo story and become one of the, or the only social media app that has already gone out of India and become a global story, to apply with us and be part of this journey. It's a very, very exciting journey, once in a lifetime. Can't be a better place.
Awesome. Yeah. On that note, welcome everyone to apply. And the Vishal Krishna on Twitter had requested people for any thoughts. As asked, shouldn't business founders see Koo as the platform for their own communications to the Indian English audience as well as other native language audience? Do you see that happening? Any thoughts?
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, today, building communities amongst the English speaking crowd of India, I think, we're all well connected. We know each other based on what our interests are. But there is a whole new audience which is just getting online and building networks, right? Some networks will be built on lifestyle. Some will be built on thoughts and opinions like us on Koo. Some will be built on, professional networks for India. So different types of networks will be built, and, Koo will be used for brands to share their story and inspire people in the smaller towns, in local languages, reach out to people in their language, right? So I think that is a very powerful way of engaging the brands. Yeah.
Okay. We should welcome all the business leaders as well to check out Koo and start cooing.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
So every single Indian knows at least two languages, minimum. One is English, right, for the English speaking crowd. And another is the mother tongue that we all speak, right? So I think for the English speaking audience, this is the platform where you can build a network and influence and inspire people in local language, right? Go back to the place where you were born and tell them your story. Tell them what you're doing today. Tell them about your success. Tell them about your struggles. And that'll unite India a lot better.
In your local language, you're saying, right? Awesome. And so it's like a superset. You can, like all the people who are on English, you can reach out here itself, and then in addition, you can also reach to your own local language audience as well. That's great. Awesome. Congrats on the journey so far. Maybe one question for you. As you look back, if you were to give some advice to the younger Apu, right, starting out from IMA, what are the top few things you will share with him?
I think one would be, I would have started off earlier, started up earlier rather. So whatever the idea would have been, like, of course, but I think being on your own gives you a lot more confidence about taking decisions based on your, thought process, right? And second thing I would have done better, as in I would have told myself is trust your first thought, right? Like I keep making a note of, okay, when I really spend a lot of time thinking of something and getting back versus what was my first thought on that, it always comes back to my first thought. So it just speeds up stuff if I've like trusted myself with my first thought. So those are a couple of things I think I would tell myself. Start up earlier and trust yourself with your first thought.
Awesome. Cool, man. That's great advice. Anything else you want to share with the audience before we wrap up?
So I think in the right place, right time is something that you can't control, but you keep putting your efforts and you never know when you stumble across something, right? So I think when you give up and the right time comes, if you're not doing anything about it, then it passes. But if you keep your journey intact and you keep putting your intense efforts, right, something will happen. Right? And I feel, as long as your intent to do something is right, things will fall in place. So, I just want to share that thought.
So don't give up. Just keep at it, right? So
I think you can keep changing paths, but keep putting in the effort.
Yeah. So it reminds me of one of the Alibaba founder Jack Ma's quotes: "Never give up.
Oh.
Today is hard. Tomorrow will be worse, but the day after tomorrow will be sunshine." I don't know if you heard that, right? So it's like, So on that note, congrats on sticking it out. It's not been an easy journey, and you have stayed there, like stayed the course, waiting for the right time, and your time has come. And we wish Koo and you and the rest of the team the very best in the years ahead. Thanks, Appu, for joining and sharing your story today.
Thanks a lot, Anand, and thanks for all your support. You've been a constant support ever since TaxiForSure and Vokal and Koo. So thanks a lot.
My pleasure. Thank you. So that is Aprameya for you, everyone. It's been an energizing conversation, and you can see why Koo is where it is right now. Ultimately, I think it is about how quickly you can learn and adapt. Which brings me to this reminder. Please tweet us at Axel_India. Our website is seed2scale.com/insights, where you can find older episodes as well. Do get in touch and leave us a review, please. It would help others find the series and help us get better. That's all from us today. Stay safe, sanitize, and gritty. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.